I'm Julie Bartkey with this Senate update. With less than a day before the anticipated start to this special session, there is still no signed agreement between leadership and the governor, and therefore no proclamation that a special session will indeed take place on Friday. The governor will speak to the Senate DFL caucus Thursday evening to lay out his expectations. He, along with caucus leaders, spoke with the media earlier on Thursday.
We had a constructive meeting this morning, and still tentatively planning to have the special session tomorrow. I'll leave it to the leaders to talk about when exactly that would be, but we need to get a necessary agreement from caucuses that they are going to work cooperatively in the big picture of getting these matters resolved and getting them approved and preventing the kind of lead up to a special to a government shutdown, which everybody wants to avoid, but which is going to require a majority agreement on matters that there's still strong views on both all four caucuses, and so that needs to get resolved. I said I'm not going to call a special session until I have every reason to believe that the bills are going to be debated within the parameters that no amendments will be allowed or at least approved, and that we'll get this resolved within one day, and so people can have the assurance of nearly 10,000 state employees whose jobs would be in jeopardy if there were a shutdown. The essential government services, which would begin with the DNR not being able to accept reservations for the state parks beginning next Monday. All the legal proceedings that are going to have to be ramped up over the next 2 weeks if we don't get this agreement. So as far as I'm concerned, and I will express this to any of the caucuses that would like to meet with me later on today, this is not about a particular like or dislike for a measure in one of the bills. Everybody can find something in these bills that they don't like. This is about whether we're going to act beyond that to prevent a government shutdown, whether we're going to act as necessary to preserve government functioning and stability here in Minnesota, and whether we're going to showcase this state to the rest of the nation as a state that operates responsibly, and that the situation that developed in 2011 was an anomaly and is not becoming the norm. So I really urge the 201 legislators to look beyond their particular political views, beyond whether they like or dislike something in the particular bill, and say we have a responsibility as 202 leaders to make sure that this state government continues to function with continuity and responsibly on behalf of all our citizens. The disputes, disagreements over these measures have been debated in the regular session for 5 months, and aftermath for almost 3 weeks. It's time to bring this to a close, and I will not call a special session until I'm confident that all four caucuses are willing to agree to those parameters, and will act so that we not get into an unraveling of this whole process that we've worked very hard to pull together to this point. And so I've gathered the caucuses are meeting late this afternoon or earlier this evening. I've offered to meet with any of the caucuses which would like me to do so, and I'll make the same case. This is about whether people are willing to vote to continue government in Minnesota in continuity, or whether they're going to vote to disrupt it further. And that to me is what these votes are going to be about. It's not about the particular measures in each of the bills. It's about whether we're going to rise above that and do what we must do as leaders in Minnesota government to make sure that we don't have these catastrophic effects.
Questions?
Are you confident your caucuses will approve these? Meeny, miny, moe, come on.
Go ahead, Mr. Leader.
Well, I guess I can go first. I had asked through the governor's staff about a week ago for the governor to come and address the DFL Senate caucus. I made that request of the governor again today, and want to thank him for his willingness to do that. I believe we've already sent an email out to our members and staff that we anticipate having a caucus at 6 p.m. tonight, and the governor has indicated that he's willing to attend. I think the challenge is, I think members feel like they have a constitutional right to offer an amendment, and that their election certificate gives them that. and I'm just uncomfortable signing that away without providing an opportunity for caucus members to hear from the governor about how difficult this whole negotiations was, and kind of how tenuous it all is, and how easily it could unravel if bills start to become amended. So I appreciate the governor's willingness to address the caucus and talk about kind of what a fragile agreement we have and how it could unravel if bills started to become amended.
Senator, are you saying that your members won't support these bills as is?
I don't know the answer to that yet. Clearly there's been some public discourse of people indicating they're going to vote no. We have to count to 34. We've got some members missing. So I don't know what the count is right now.
Mr. Speaker, same question if you don't mind.
I anticipate that all of these bills will pass the House. That hasn't been a concern, I don't think, for us. The bonding bill obviously requires some minority votes. I actually think that all of the bills will likely have some votes from the minority party, but either way, we anticipate the bills will pass the House.
Are you willing to sign the letter now?
Yes. Yeah.
But you need, Mr. Leader, to wait until you talk to your caucus to sign it.
Yes, I think the governor and I need to both address the caucus.
So,
And the minority leaders too, would you venture?
I think that the bills will probably pass the House, yes.
And you're willing to sign the letter today, right now?
So, well, I will sign the letter when all four, yeah, I'll sign the letter when all 5 leaders are willing to sign the letter.
But not until then?
Well,
Has to be 5 or?
Well, without 5, it doesn't matter.
I'm not willing to sign a letter until we have had a chance to meet with whichever of the caucuses desire a chance to meet with me and air their concerns. I'm not going to sign the letter until I'm strongly assured, even though they're verbal from the caucuses, that they're going to proceed in a way that is not disruptive to this process getting resolved. Now, whether that means that no one can offer an amendment on the floor, or whether it means that there'll be a promise that it will not be supported by members as necessary to prevent anything from being enacted. If you add an amendment now to one of these bills, then it has to go back into conference committee. We have 20 more days until the shutdown. We don't have time to continue this process, which dragged on for 5 months in the legislative session, which dragged on for the last 3 weeks, and not because people were not expending enormous amount of time and energy in good faith to get them resolved. But the time has passed to say, I like this or I don't like that. People can have their press conferences outside of the special session. They can say these are the amendments I would have offered. They can do whatever they want to and feel they need to do to express their views on these. And again, I don't deprive anybody of their constitutional right to do what they choose to do on the Senate or House floor. But this is bigger than that now. This is about people stepping up and doing what we all must do necessarily to get this thing resolved. And people who are going to vote against one of these bills need to go back and tell their constituents how that's serving the better interests of the state of Minnesota at this point. These bills can I finish, please? These bills have to pass. They have to pass. And they have to pass unanimously, no, but if somebody's going to start to disrupt this whole process at this point by offering a self-serving amendment, I'm going to be very strongly opposed, and I'm going to be not bashful about going around to their respective districts and telling people in those districts this kind of grandstanding is just not acceptable.
Governor, are you surprised at all that it's gotten to the point where we're a day before when you had hoped to have this special session, that there still isn't a concrete agreement?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, these have been strongly divisive issues throughout the whole process and continue to be. And I'm asking people to set aside those divisions based on their particular points of view or ideologies and saying we got to have a bigger responsibility to the people of Minnesota to conclude this session and not severely disrupt the services the state's providing, to not severely disrupt the lives of almost 10,000 state employees. And that's a big step. But that's what leaders are challenged to do, is to take the big step necessary to rise above their own individual interests and concerns and say, we're going to do this for the state of Minnesota. I don't know, Lieutenant Governor, you want to
I'm good. Governor, do you have concerns that you would not meet the 48-hour requirement that many lawmakers have asked for if you called a special session tomorrow?
Well, I believe that they're asking for an opportunity for 48 hours to review the bills. The bills have been drafted. Is the final one, Jobs?
They're posted. They're posted last
All
night.
posted. So I think, again, those leaders can speak to that, but I think there's been ample opportunity for people to review the bills.
Along that line, Senator Bach, if in fact the governor gets assurances from your caucus that, is Dave going to meet his parameters and so on, is a special session tomorrow doable from a logistical standpoint?
Yeah, I believe it is. I don't see any reason. We have sent out multiple notices to our caucus members over the last 3 weeks about the ongoing state of negotiations, and in the most recent days have told them that they should keep their schedules flexible, that if it's likely a special session could happen as early as Friday. So I think most members of my caucus are expecting something to happen on Friday.
Logistics aside, it sounds like there are two obstacles here. There isn't a signed agreement yet because, Governor, you would like no amendments to any of these bills, and two, there's questions about votes being available in the caucus to pass some of these bills. Is that the situation at hand?
Well, again, I can't dictate that no one can offer an amendment, but I want agreement of the four leaders representing their four caucuses that if an individual offers an amendment, it's not going to be passed by the majority in that particular caucus, which would mean that it would not pass that body. If the bills are going to be left as they are, they're going to be supported by the necessary number of representatives and senators to pass, and that in a timely fashion tomorrow we're going to bring this session to a conclusion.
Governor, you said that lawmakers basically were grandstanding as they were against these bills. On the environmental issues, many of the DFLers came to the legislature to protect the environment, and they say these bills go backwards. How is that grandstanding?
Well, I'm not going to. Grandstanding would be to come in tomorrow at this point in time and put those individual interest concerns ahead of the broader responsibility, which is to get this thing resolved. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have a right to speak out before or after the session. Obviously, they do. They have an opportunity to, say this is the amendment I would offer later on today or not. But to take what's at stake now is the continuity of government in Minnesota. It's bigger than one particular bill. It's certainly bigger than one particular legislator's views on a bill one way or the other. This is about a responsibility we have after going through almost now 6 months of these intense debates and disagreements to say, okay, we're going to bring it to a conclusion. And to me, though, these votes are not about whether you favor or don't favor a particular bill or particular amendments. It's about, are you going to responsibly end this legislative session so government can go on, people can be served, or you can continue to drag it out and drag it out and drag it out for whatever gain you have, either ideologically or politically or otherwise. And I have zero tolerance for people who are going to any further come in and take the opportunity they have and the First Amendment right they have to disrupt this process. They can talk about it and they can disagree, whatever else, but if it gets to a matter of bringing forward a vote that would throw this whole thing back to square one, require going back into a conference committee to resolve new differences between the House and the Senate, and among the four caucuses themselves, I just think it would be just really intolerable, and I'll take that position.
Governor, from your perspective, how much of a problem is it if it bounces into next week like Monday? Does the state park issue become a big factor then?
Well, it does if you're trying to make a reservation and take your family on a vacation in Minnesota. It certainly does. And it's a signal that there are other matters, there are a number of other matters that affect state agencies and their functioning, which is not so apparent to the people of Minnesota, but affect those agencies, their efficiencies, their ability to make decisions, to notify people like it, and that will continue to escalate as we go into the last 3 weeks before the end of this month. And it's just unfair. It's just unfair to all the people whose lives depend upon the continuity of government, whose various plans and operations are affected by that, the uncertainty it causes. I mean, there are private contracts all over that have to be renewed July 1st. Those people, their employees are all affected by this. We have highway contracts and everything else that are all thrown up in the air if they can't be enacted or continued. The schools, I'm not knowledgeable about the particulars, but the school funding that goes out on a monthly basis that is put in jeopardy. I mean, all these things that, it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to prevent this. I went through this once before. I saw how disruptive it was. I saw how long it took us to really recover and restore in fact and in perception that Minnesota government functioned responsibly. I will do everything in my power to see that doesn't happen again, and that we don't even get close to that point.
So the soonest you could make the decision is after this meeting with the Senate DFL tonight?
Well, whichever caucuses would like to meet with me, I'm available. I've told all 4 leaders I'll meet with them individually, and I'll meet with their caucuses individually. So at whatever point that's concluded, I think it's less a question of our signing that document, although that's necessary. I think it's more, my believing that the members of those respective caucuses, have a chance to air their frustrations or disagreements with me and my role in this, but beyond that they understand that they have a bigger responsibility right now as leaders of the state to get this matter resolved.
Senator Hand, on the environment bill, are you predicting there might be peer votes within your caucus because of the size of the budget that's grown in these negotiations?
Well, I think there could be a variety of reasons. In the course of trying to call members about a prospective meeting tomorrow and try to talk to them about the bills, I think there are fewer votes. I told Senator Bach this morning that we know there are 10, and just we'll see where they are, but I think that the bills will ultimately pass.
You know that there are 10 for them, 10 against them?
10 for them in my caucus.
Senator Bach, how many votes are there for the environment bill in your caucus?
We have not discussed that yet. We haven't had a formal caucus since adjournment, so we have not made an effort to whip the bills yet.
How many other caucuses have invited the governor? Just Senator Bach?
I think he'll probably come to our caucus too, but.
What about the Republicans? Would ask them?
I don't know that, I appreciate the governor's offer, and we certainly will take him up on it. I think the idea about the amendment issue, I know of no amendments our caucus is thinking about offering. I don't anticipate any amendments, and I am going to make it clear to our caucus that I don't support any amendments, so I don't anticipate there will be on our side. I'm going to talk to some of our caucus members today, and if I think it's necessary, we'll invite the governor.
Mr. Speaker, do you anticipate a visit from the governor?
Maybe I should leave the room.
I don't know. I have spent, first of all, I want to thank the governor. We've spent an awful lot of time together over the course of the last, 2 weeks specifically, but even longer than that. And while nobody's 100% happy with everything that we're doing, I think what we showed is that we're going to put Minnesotans first and come together in agreement, because we understand that in itself is very important, and that's really why this session needs to proceed, and we need to pass these bills and adopt this agreement tomorrow. We need to make sure that we're providing Minnesotans with the certainty that the important things in these bills are going to happen, and that in itself is very important. I haven't asked the governor to come to our caucus. I'm not sure it's necessary. I, like every other leader here, is probably going to have to do some convincing in my caucus, but I anticipate that we will have the votes to pass all of these bills in the House, and my guess is they'll be there in the Senate as well. It took us an awful lot of work and an awful lot of time to get to where we are today, and I don't think any of us wants to be seen as the person or the caucus that is standing in the way of that or unraveling that. So my anticipation is that this will happen tomorrow as we expect, and that these bills will pass.
On the environment bill,
I mean, it's seriously, I don't take affront whether somebody wants to, meet with me or not. I'm available, and I don't take it as a statement one way or the other. If I'm not needed, we're not helpful to the shared goal of getting this resolved, then I don't need to meet. I'll be available tomorrow. I think informally, but we'll formally ask the speaker for some space somewhere. I think maybe we'll pitch a tent just outside.
Maybe what has to happen, if he comes to my caucus, he'll have to ask my caucus to vote against the bills, and then they'll support them.
There we go. That's right. There we go. But I'll be available tomorrow again to meet with caucuses, to meet with, if the session is held tomorrow, individually or whatever. So, matter of getting it done.
in the environment bill, many environmental groups are coming out strongly opposing it. We have some doubt in the Senate whether there are enough votes to pass it. With 20 days left until a government shutdown, is there room to work on that bill further?
Well, I mean, work on it. It's been worked on for 5 months, and now an additional 3.5 weeks. I mean, I understand people are unhappy with it. Probably people on the other side of the political aisle are unhappy with it. I mean, at some point you have to say, that's the conclusion, and it's to be continued in the next session or wherever. But people think that bill that came out of the conference committee in the past, both the House and the Senate, is going to somehow be magically, reconstructed to somebody's individual or organizational satisfaction is really an unreasonable expectation, and it's not going to be realized with another 3 weeks of debate, and it's certainly not going to be realized with any time thereafter with a government shutdown. And it's just at some point you say, this is, using the hockey analogy, the game's over, and you get prepared for the next game, but at some point it's got to end. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying people should like it, but to come in and say, now we're going to disrupt the whole process, we're going to shut down state government until we get a bill we want, well, we won't get a bill that some of these groups want, and I respect them for their points of view. But whether I agree or disagree with those points of view, it isn't achievable and on their terms for this session. So at some point, got to acknowledge that and proceed.
Is the fate of the Ag and Environment Bill and how it plays out with amendments and that, is that your biggest impediment to calling a special session?
Well, it relates to all the bills. It sounds like that's the one where it's most in doubt, but it would apply equally to any one of them. I mean, we just have to get this resolved. I'm going to do everything in my power to see that we don't shut down state government over any one of these measures, which had long debates and hearings and everything else, and everybody's well aware of the different points of view, and they're strongly held. So what's to be gained by having another round of attacking and counterattacking and the like? I mean, at some point, again, you have to say, okay, it's over for this round. Come back next session, come back, in the interim, come back whenever, but take it to another venue, because this one has to be resolved.